Hey everyone, so today's topic, today's word to define is the word evangelical. Now, I have observed, again, I don't know if you've caught this, I like to observe things, so especially because I'm, prone to speak without thinking, and so I'm learning. God's teaching me to just observe before I speak, and I've observed a growing amount of hostility towards evangelicals, towards evangelicalism, which you could maybe differentiate between the two things, but since they're the root words, I'm going to keep them the same for simplicity's sake. But we could have a deeper debate about that. But there's this growing hostility. There's a movement of people who are deconstructing their faith, and they are calling themselves ex-evangelicals and all this kind of thing. But I really, this morning, just want to talk a little bit about that and the growing hostility I see even within the walls of the church towards ourselves. I want to talk about this word evangelical. What does it mean, and should Christians use it as a term to identify themselves and that sort of thing? And so that's what I want to talk about this morning, and hopefully urge us towards some sort of unity in this topic. So here's what the word evangelical actually means. Again, not my opinions. I'm trying to, in these videos, avoid my opinions. I just want to stick to the truth, which will hopefully bring some unity. But evangelical means pertaining to or in keeping with the gospel and its teachings. If that's what the word means, if that's what it means to be evangelical, that's an idea that is entirely biblical, to pursue in keeping with the gospel and its teachings, pertaining to keeping with the gospel and its teachings. That should be something that's the desire of everyone who would name themselves a follower of Jesus Christ. That should be the desire of every believer. And so I don't think the problem is that we call ourselves evangelicals. I think that idea of pertaining to the gospel, keeping with its teachings, is very biblical. This isn't the only time Paul says something like this, but Ephesians 4:1, he says, I, therefore, a prisoner for the Lord, urge you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you've been called. The calling of the gospel, the calling that the gospel places on our lives. What that means, I don't have time in this video to get into all of what that means, but the ramifications of that are significant and huge, and the gospel then becomes the thing that dictates our lives. So I don't think the word evangelical is the problem. I think it's that there have been so many distortions and misuses and abuses of what it really means to be evangelical. As I've observed, when people think evangelical, I think they think Donald Trump. I think they think people like Joel Osteen. And I think they think people like maybe Jerry Falwell Jr. If you don't know who those people are, that's okay. You could look them up. But here's what I would say to that. They don't represent what it means to be evangelical. They don't represent what it means oftentimes of pertaining to and keeping with the teachings of the gospel. And so here's the thing, and I'll point to this again and again. Something is not right or wrong. A belief system, a point of view, a worldview is not right or wrong based on the abuses and misuses and distortions of that view. But something's right or wrong based on whether or not it's true, based on whether or not it's right in and of itself. People will always abuse good and right things, but that doesn't mean that those things are no longer good and right. And so for Christians, for followers of Christ, rather than be so hasty as to abandon altogether being evangelical, I think the goal for us should to actually be evangelical. So I'm going to continue to call myself evangelical. I identify myself as evangelical because I'm trying to live a life that follows Christ, a life that aligns with the gospel and its teaching, as should every Christian. I would even say it this way: to be a follower of Jesus Christ is to be evangelical. To be evangelical is to be a follower of Jesus Christ. The two are not separate in this case, given what the word actually means and its root and its original thing. To proclaim the gospel is entirely right and aligning with the Bible and its teachings and what it means to be a Christian. So again, I just kind of hope that this maybe clears some things up for you. I get that there are abuses. I get that there are things that are wrong within evangelicalism, and I get there are some problems and issues. I'm not denying any of that, but if you really understand what the word means, then it seems like that's something that you would, as a follower of Christ, want to hold to very closely and even protect in that regard. So hope you found this video helpful. If you do find this video helpful, you can click on the link in this video to the other videos that are a part of this series, and I got a schedule for many, many more. So again, my prayer is that these videos would help stir up passion, compassion, kindness, and ultimately in some way bring the glory of Christ to earth, and reveal the glory of heaven from earth, because that's the purpose of the life of the Christian, to reveal the glory of God and proclaim the good news of Jesus Christ.